not very popular in every conversation around food security because my entrepreneurial background leads me to know that there are better ways of accomplishing what needs to happen today.
The world's biggest problems aren't waiting, and neither are the people solving them. Hi, I'm Kara Baskin, and welcome to our podcast, From Problems to Possibilities, Entrepreneurial Leadership in Action, presented by Babson College. Are you like me? Do you see a problem that feels impossible to solve? Don't despair. In this podcast, there's hope. We'll pose a problem, enlist visionaries within the Babson community and beyond, and explore possible solutions. There's a lot we're going to learn right now as we go from problems to possibilities. You probably didn't wake up wondering where your breakfast would come from, but millions of families do. Hunger doesn't wait. It's urgent, affecting 47 million people, adults and children, living in food-insecure households. The causes are many, but what role can entrepreneurial leadership have in solving it?
I'm Jeni Wheeler, Executive Director and co-founder of the Family Table Collaborative.
Jeni also received her MBA from Babson College with a focus on social entrepreneurism. Her Family Table Collaborative is dedicated to ending food insecurity on Cape Cod. While Jeni's story will uplift you, it also includes profound hardship, a period when she nearly ended her life and relied on food stamps for 6 months. It is a delight to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. As someone who's a food writer, a food eater, there is so much to talk about. And I also do a lot of food charity work myself. So I feel like a little bit of hero worship having you here on the podcast. Let's start at the beginning of the darker days when you had a very difficult accident. You lost consciousness. You had full body trauma. You even attempted to take your own life at one point, which is very brave of you to share. I'm curious how the recovery played into your business concept and how this turned into something that is the epitome, really, of entrepreneurial leadership and giving food to those who need it so much.
I turned 40, was single, no kids, wasn't the plan. And I was kind of like, what am I doing with my life? And so I actually took a year off of business and ended up, through very random circumstances, teaching 7th grade math in Lynn, the city I grew up in. That's the year I started to think about, okay, what do I really want out of my life? And that was when I actually went to start Jeni's Joy, a gluten-free food brand. And I started at Hope in Maine, in Warren, Rhode Island, at a shared kitchen. And then I was building out my own gluten-free kitchen in Lynn. I was on a trip, and unfortunately, my right heel fell through the fiberglass of the tub at the hotel I was staying at. Pitched me backwards, slammed my head into the wall. My right elbow, they tell me, came down on the edge of the tub, dislodged my ulnar nerve, crushed the nerve underneath it, and it sustained injuries to my right hamstring. I had been going to lots of doctors. They were treating me for all the different components, and I really wasn't healing. I was having a hard time reading. I had immense light and noise sensitivities. I was just totally broken. I was on a lot of different medications. I was so overwhelmed and I was in so much pain that I just couldn't function. I needed the pain to stop. I ended up taking a handful of pills. I was so overwhelmed and so broken and I was in so much pain that I just couldn't function. I don't know that I would survive it again.
I'm curious how the injury actually sparked this business idea.
I ended up spending my first 2+ years on Cape Cod at Spalding, 4 days a week, PT, OT, brain injury support groups. I didn't have full use of my right hand and my right arm, and I am right-handed. They kept pushing me, and I got introduced to the one thing I could still do is speak to people. I joined a women in business group, and I was introduced to a program at a church called Faith. It was not lost on me that I was at a place called Faith when I didn't have any. This commercial kitchen had been built on the back of their church, and this pastor had said to me, what if I give you a little bit of kitchen time and maybe you can volunteer? We have a soup kitchen. And I spent exactly 3 days in that kitchen with someone else before they gave me the program. That was my first intersection of seeing the food need on Cape Cod. This program fed the homeless.
Your entrepreneurial leadership came through in the darkest of times.
I was so broken still. I did not see that at the time. And it was amazing. We elevated the food to such a different level that everyone started coming. And the local police have like a local resource department. And they started asking if they could send somebody because it was the one place they said that everyone would come because of the food. It was amazing.
Taking 10 seconds to ask a favor. Share this podcast with your friends and colleagues and click follow so you never miss an episode. Now back to our conversation. What did you see in terms of the need?
Cape Cod is becoming harder and harder to survive year-round because of the very heightened housing costs and the lack of accessible housing. The cost of living on Cape Cod is significantly higher than the state average. The wages are below the state average. I was becoming aware that food insecurity was definitely a thing. My first real foray into recognizing food insecurity could affect more people faster was the government shutdown of December of 2018.
The federal government is now partially shut down, and CBS News has learned it is unlikely to end until late next week after Christmas.
It created really significant problems, and people who had never been in need, who had never faced anything like this, all of a sudden were having real problems. And that, of course, was really what happened with COVID.
We begin with breaking news tonight, what New York's governor is calling a matter of life and death. And across America, hundreds of schools and colleges are closing nationwide. The list of businesses telling employees to work from home is growing. And large gatherings, including some sporting events and concerts, are now being called off.
During COVID, is that when you came up with the idea for the Family Table Collaborative?
The day the shutdown happened, I called my now co-founder and I said, Harry, we could be doing more, we should be doing more, we need to be doing more. And his response was, that's great, Jen, what's it look like? And I was like, I'm not sure. And at almost the same time, the American Culinary Federation had reached out to Harry and said, hey, look, all of these restaurants are closing. There's all this food that's going to go bad. And all of these people are going to need assistance that have never needed assistance. We want to do something. And he introduced them to me. We convened a meeting with their board. And 2 weeks later, we were off to the races. We were doing prepared, nutritious meals out of the backs of refrigerated trucks all over Cape Cod. And it truly started just as a rapid response to COVID, without a thought of where do we go from here. My co-founder, Harry, kept saying to me, do you think there's a place for us? And I kept saying, no, not because I didn't see a growing need, but because Cape Cod has more nonprofits per capita than anywhere else in the United States. Why would I ever want to play in that space? Yet, in moments of chaos, there also often comes opportunity.
Who were you serving and how were they finding you? And how were you then discovering that the problem is far more vast?
We were seeing so many different types of people for a myriad of reasons. We were being told we were saving people's lives, changing people's lives. This was the only home-cooked meal people were getting. It was the only good food.
Right now, you have a volunteer, do you call it a volunteer army?
That army stands currently at more than 550 active volunteers.
It's become part of my life. It's a place that I get up and really look forward to coming to. And I've met some wonderful people. It's a really great social atmosphere.
Fastest growing volunteer nonprofit on Cape Cod. We take in food from most of the local farms, the Fishermen's Alliance, the fishing and shellfishing industry at large, a varying amount of grocery stores, but our largest community partner is Whole Foods Market.
The Hyena store donates to Family Table Collaborative at least once a day, sometimes two. Sometimes we'll get a delivery of something that we cannot use. And if there isn't a specific food bank that can use it, we'll call Family Table and they'll grab their van and they'll come down and grab it from us.
How does it go back into the community?
Our teams take in all the food. They go through it. They determine what we can use in the meals we're going to make for the community that week. They determine what we can rescue that we're not going to use, and that we clean up and we turn around and put it right back out through agencies that interface directly with families and those most at risk. Whatever we can't rescue goes to feed the local farm animals, and whatever they don't eat goes back in the ground as compost right here on Cape Cod.
We want to know your opinion on this topic. Send your comments to podcast@babson.edu. Now back to our conversation.
Babson is at the core of everything I do today, and it comes back to a singular person. Natalie Taylor is truly the beginning of who I am today.
During her 26 years at Babson College, Dr. Natalie Taylor championed social entrepreneurship and shaped the MBA program. Following her passing in 2009, her legacy continues through the Natalie Taylor Scholar Program, honoring students devoted to service and social responsibility.
I really loved everything Babson stood for in the entrepreneurship, but I got there and I felt very out of my depth. I kind of just muddled my way through that first semester. Then I landed in what was at that time the only class at Babson in social entrepreneurship. And I landed in Natalie Taylor's class, and I sat there and I fangirled the entire semester because I literally was like, oh my goodness, I do belong. I have people. This is what you call it, social entrepreneurship.
For those who might hear the phrase and think, what does it mean?
I can tell you what it means to me, and that is using business modeling to help solve social needs. When you do that, you can come up with very unexpected solutions or partnerships that other people didn't see and build relationships that can cause good. And for me, that's social entrepreneurship, business modeling used to help solve social needs.
How do you implement this social entrepreneurship in your day-to-day?
I listen first. Food is not a one-size-fits-all problem. And often I think that's really where so much business goes sideways. So in order to create solutions that are not one-size-fits-all, it requires a lot more thought and varying processes, and it's harder.
So if you were to give advice to other entrepreneurial leaders who want to tackle food insecurity in their own communities, who want to replicate the amazing model that you have done, what would you advise?
One thing you must have in order to look at anything to do with nutritional security is refrigeration. Almost all transitional housing on Cape Cod only has access to a dorm fridge and a microwave. So if you're giving fresh food to people and you don't know if they have a stove, you don't know if they have knives, you don't know if they have access to spices, you don't know if they have a can opener, you have to ask questions in order to know if what you're doing is actually helping. So refrigeration is the key to nutritional security. Immediacy is the second key. Whole Foods Market donates to pantries 7 days a week. Whole Foods Market also donates to Family Table Collaborative at least 7 days a week. When I say we're taking in over 150 cases of food every week, it's mostly produce. Why are those boxes not going to the pantries? It's because they can't take them. They can't deal with the immediacy, deal with the amount of refrigeration, deal with the clean it up aspect of what we do. And that's where the gap is.
Part of your mission is actually teaching how to cook. How does that figure into your plan?
I do a free online cooking class once a month where people can cook live time with me and ask me questions. We do recipes. I do a quarterly column with Edible Cape Cod around the idea of debunking that it has to take a lot of time, that it has to be super hard, that it has to be very costly. It doesn't.
I think people often think around the holidays, that's when they're charitable. Makes total sense, but this is a year-round problem. How can we get folks involved on a year-round basis? What are some things that people can do to battle food insecurity in their own communities?
We have a huge amount of people upcrop of people that want to help during the holidays, and that's amazing. And we always encourage them to join us and to help. But we often see people stay. They can go on and see all of the vast amount of opportunities. If you like to cook, come play in my kitchen. If you don't like to cook, but you like to taste test, come and help us pack meals. Come and help us drive the meals. Come and hand the meals out to the community. You can go on our website, familytablecollaborative.org. We are there just about 7 days a week. We are averaging about 4,000 meals a month. We're about to launch our Lower Outer Cape public distribution at Thanksgiving. We're looking at putting out over 2,500 meals. We also open our facility on Thanksgiving Day for a community pay what you can Thanksgiving for those that don't have anywhere else to go.
Bottom line, how does entrepreneurial leadership solve food insecurity on Cape Cod and perhaps beyond?
I think social entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial leadership is required in any type of time of chaos. Right now, I think is a perfect time in our history that allows us to reimagine some of the systems that are so broken. The food system has to be one of the very, very top. So it's addressing the full cycle of what's going on, not just seeing something as a pinpointed singular problem, but recognizing the ecosystem that has allowed that problem to foster and grow, and instead look at it and say, okay, how can we help, whether it's a direct target or whether it's through somewhat indirect ways?
Jeni, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
The conversation doesn't end here. Share your comments at podcast@babson.edu. You never know, we may use it in an upcoming episode. Plus, you can help grow the podcast. Share it with your friends and colleagues, click follow so you'll never miss an episode, and leave a 5-star rating and review, which tells the algorithms that we're doing something special here. Thanks for listening to From Problems to Possibilities, Entrepreneurial Leadership in Action, presented by Babson College. I'm Kara Baskin. See you next time.